Very good. Very good, very good. So,
Are the Donovans still out of town?
I think they were supposed to be back. So she said they were getting back Tuesday or maybe yesterday. So
Yeah.
that she was supposed to be back. Peggy was going to lead for her Monday. So, and I didn't get any reports that that didn't work the way that it was supposed to. So, anyway. But,
We were at Soul Man's last Friday night for their fish night. And two people walked in that looked familiar, and then as soon as the guy talked, I knew for sure that it was James. He went all the way through the line, and he and his wife came out of there, and I said, I can't see your face, but I know that voice anywhere. And then I kidded him about the fact that, well, and now this might have been actually a week ago or a week before, because I wasn't on last week, but I was kidding him about the fact that he hadn't made it on the call week before last. So at any rate, he seemed to be in a good mood and all. So.
Yeah. He and Ian were in church on Sunday. So.
Yeah, I do. I remember.
Yeah. And y'all sat up front again.
Yeah. Well, Gail has decided she likes sitting up front. She can hear you better.
Ah, very good. Because y'all were hanging in the back row there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Okay, so what's your sermon going to be on this time? Which part of it?
It's the end of chapter 8, so 26 to 40. So it's Friday's reading, Friday the 23rd's reading. I'm actually putting finishing touches on that right now. So, yeah, Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch.
Now, are you going to well, let me make sure that what I'm about to say is right. Yeah, are you gonna do one on Acts 9, 1 through 9 the following week?
Yeah, the following week will be actually 1 to 20, I believe. So Saturday plus Monday's reading, and then maybe it was just a 19. Let me double check.
What is the consensus as to where Paul was for the 3 years after that? However long it was that he was away from everybody.
So let's see. Let's see. So tell me where you're looking at.
Oh, I'm not looking at anything. I'm going from memory. The fact that once he was able to see, it seems like he went somewhere else, and he was away for like 1 to 3 years. I don't remember how long it was. And then he came back, and he was a house of fire. And so I'm here again. I'm going from memory. I'm not going from any particular thing I read. Let's see.
I mean, because halfway through the chapter 9, it switches back to Peter as the main character.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll have to find where I'm recalling that from, and then let you know.
Well, it says, so verse 9:30 says, when the believers learned of the Hellenists attempting to kill him, they brought him down to Caesarea and they sent him out to Tarsus, which was his hometown. And so that's when the story departs from him and goes back to Peter. And then Peter has goes to Joppa, and then there's Cornelius, and then Peter meets up with him in chapter 10.
Oh yeah.
And then hey, it's Mark. Mark, are you in your truck?
Sorry, I think that's me.
Oh, okay. Your name says Mark Robinson on the.
Oh, yeah, because he logged in for Bible study on my phone last night.
Ah, there you go.
So, okay, I've got to figure out how to get him off of here.
Well, good afternoon, Sherry.
Hi.
I would have been okay if it was Mark too. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Let's see. Okay, so Gary, going back to when, so it's not until chapter 11 that Barnabas goes to Tarsus to look for Saul. So yeah, there is some time gap in between there. So if that's the gap you're referring to,
that may be it.
yeah.
For some reason, I'm remembering that he quote unquote disappeared, and maybe it was just a Tarsus and that's all it was. But
Right.
we had some discussion, and this has been years ago, about the fact that there was thinking that he had gone off to be personally tutored, if you will, by Christ or something. It's just been too long ago for me to remember for sure where that came from.
Okay. Well, and he may maybe when we get to the next, the latter half of the book, he'll talk about that some more. I don't recall that particularly, or it may be in one of the letters that he references that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, he's a big player in the majority of the New Testament, so.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this Sunday, this Sunday I'll be talking about Acts 8:26-40, which is Philip's boldness, Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. This is the more I dove into this, the better it got. I already liked this passage on the surface of it, but as I sat with it and let it stew for a little while, I was like, oh, what about that? And what about that? And so lots of good little nuggets in here that gave me pause to chew on. So, and it's actually the second time that that Philip has this evangelistic fervor. So the first one actually happens in the beginning of chapter 8, back at the beginning of the week, where he goes to Samaria, and we begin to see the coming true of Acts 1:8. So, I mean, we opened the week with the persecution becoming severe immediately following Stephen's death, and Saul going house to house and yanking out men and women that were leaders in the church. And then there's a distinction made between the disciples and the apostles. And the disciples are scattered, and the apostles stay in Jerusalem. So with Philip being one of the disciples, specifically one of the 7 from chapter 6, he goes off to Samaria, and he, lots of people come to Christ, including Simon the magician, who then, subsequent to Peter and John showing up, tries to buy the power of laying on hands and imparting the Holy Spirit, and then immediately repents of that. And then Peter and John go back to Jerusalem, and then we have the scene at the end where Philip is called by the Lord to go on this wilderness road.
What denomination is N.T. Wright?
He's actually Anglican. He was a
Anglican.
bishop of the Anglican Church.
I found it interesting on one of the pages in the book that that they actually have bishops that touch or whatever to give people. Now I know I highlighted that. Where did it go?
Like on 125.
Oh, as a bishop, one of the things I do on page 125, I do quite a lot is to go around laying hands on people and praying for God's Holy Spirit to come upon them. And I just, that sounded so different from our church.
Right. Yeah. So he was the Bishop of Durham in the UK, and now he's a full-time professor now. But he part of his episcopal responsibilities, was to travel around and preach and order the life of the church in that particular way. So yes, he's now retired as a bishop.
Okay.
Let's see. Pages stuck together here. Okay. So Philip goes on this desert road. So initially he goes north to Samaria from Jerusalem, and now he's going south and west towards Gaza, and he meets this Ethiopian eunuch who's returning home after being in Jerusalem to worship. And he is sitting in his chariot, and he's reading the prophet Isaiah, Isaiah 53. And again, nudged by the Spirit, I've sort of centered my sermon around 3 nudges. The initial one to go to the road, the second one to go run up alongside the chariot, and the third one that goes to Azotus. But, he walks up alongside, or runs up alongside, and hears him reading from Isaiah and asks him a question. They have this conversation, and he's able to explain from Isaiah 53 all about Jesus, and the eunuch is brought to faith and gets baptized, and then he goes on. Then the Spirit snatches him away. It's an interesting little word. And then the eunuch goes on his way rejoicing. And some, while there's no real direct proof of this, in my research, much of the early Coptic Orthodox churches in that northern Africa trace their historical significance to this particular person, because he would have gone back to this region of northeastern Africa and told of what he had experienced, and then the movement starts from there. So because he goes on his way rejoicing, and then Philip goes finds himself in Azotus and then goes up the Mediterranean coast to Gaza. So, until he gets to Caesarea, which then we don't see Philip again until chapter 21, where he's got 4 daughters and they're all prophetesses, and there's Agabus, and it's a good time. We'll get there. We'll get there along about April, I think. Maybe March. So anyway, so it's a good text. And then we turn the page and the focus goes back to Saul and Saul's experience on the Damascus Road. And there's the light from heaven. And I always find it interesting when I read Acts 9 is that the voice says to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? And he asks, who are you, Lord? It's almost as if he already knows what's going on. And he says, I am Jesus, whom you're persecuting. Get up and do what you're told. So he can't see. He doesn't eat or drink for 3 days. And I always take that as a reflection of Jesus being in the tomb for 3 days. It would have been dark. He would not have been able to see. Wouldn't have eaten or drank anything. So I always make that parallel there. And then there's the restoration of his sight and the scales falling from his eyes. And he takes food, and remember, post-resurrection Jesus eats breakfast on the shore with the disciples. It's all, it's like, oh, it's like Luke knows what he's doing. So and then so he's with the disciples in Damascus, and he begins to proclaim Jesus in the synagogues, which is the exact opposite of what he was intending to do upon his departure from Jerusalem. And he throws the whole city into confusion because they think he's come there to bring people bound before the chief priests, that follow the way. And he becomes increasingly more and more powerful, confounding the Jews and proving that Jesus was the Messiah. Let's see. And then, just like Stephen, just like Peter, just like John, he finds himself in the crosshairs of the Jewish religious authorities. But verse 25 says, his disciples took him by night and let him down through an opening in the wall, lowering him in a basket. I think it's fun that he's already got disciples at this point, that there's already people that have found Christ, and he's begun to teach them, and they're willing to stick their neck out for him by lowering him through an opening in the wall in a basket. So it's probably a big basket, it's not like just a little bread basket or anything. Let's see. And then let's see. Then he goes to Jerusalem, and he tries to join up with the disciples, but they didn't believe him. And so Barnabas comes onto the scene here. Again, he made his appearance in the end of chapter 4. It was the first time we met Barnabas, when he sold property and gave it to the disciples and the apostles so that they could provide. He comes back, and he lives up to his name here as son of encouragement. And he describes how Saul had seen the Lord on the road to Damascus, how he'd spoken boldly, and how and so then his vouching for Saul enables them to let him go in and out among them, speaking boldly. And then this is when they send him off to Tarsus, which is Saul's hometown, at the end of verse 30. Meanwhile, Luke says the church throughout Judea, Galilee, and Samaria, so already we're getting this spreading, had peace and was built up, living in the fear of the Lord and the comfort of the Holy Spirit. It increased in numbers. So even in the midst of persecution, even in the midst of people wanting to try to knock down the top people in this movement, it is still moving forward, and people are still being brought into the faith. So that brings us up to what I read today, because we're a week ahead. So, but this is when the scene shifts to Peter again. So I haven't wrapped my brain around that. I've got to get through Saul first, conversion on the road to Damascus. So, what questions do y'all have about either what's coming up this Sunday or what's in the first part of chapter 9?
This is not necessarily about the lesson, but when is it that he gets his name changed from Saul to Paul?
Chapter 13, I believe.
Okay.
Let me double check. I was working on that the other day. I've already started outlining stuff for let's see. Yeah, 13 verse 9. But Saul, also known as Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, looked intently at him and said, and this is he's talking to he was talking to the proconsul. He said, "You son of the devil, you enemy of all of righteousness, full of all deceit and villainy, will you not stop making crooked the straight paths of the Lord?" So it's not until chapter 13 that he started to call Paul.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think, let's see. Trying to remember. There's a so trying to remember where there's a moment in the text where it switches. Usually, the first part of the story where Barnabas and Saul are together, the order of their naming is always Barnabas and Saul, and then there's a moment where it flips, and I can't remember where that is. So it says 13. Let's see, 13. Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul. This is 13:2, for the work to which I've called them. So they went out, Barnabas and Saul. And I think it's, I thought it was a few more times than that they appeared together as Saul or Barnabas and Saul before it switches, but it may only be a couple times. But there's this moment where Barnabas switches to taking a backseat role and lets Paul step into the front. We'll get to that. January, we'll get there. All right. What else?
I can't think of anything else.
Okay. Sherry, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All righty then. Well, Sherry, did you get your books yesterday?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
You're
And
welcome.
I already had the money in an envelope that I dropped in the mailbox before I saw that there was an envelope in the bag. So I didn't use the official envelope. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We'll make sure it gets credited to the right place.
Okay.
Very good. All righty. Well, I want you to know I'm praying for you. Appreciate all you're doing. And if something comes up that you need to, ask a question about, that's fine. So I'm going to talk to Ad Council next week about moving into phase 2 of our regathering plan on Sunday the 1st, which would allow groups to begin meeting in the building. So Sunday school classes would be able to do that. So if you haven't had that conversation with your class yet, then now would be a good time to at least broach the subject. And just because it's available doesn't mean you have to take advantage of it. If people, if enough people are still concerned enough to stay apart, that's fine. But we are working on sort of giving an approximation of capacity for each of the rooms. That's what the trustees are working on right now. So Gary, I don't know if your classes had any conversation about that.
Oh yeah, we have, and since we have between 30 and 40, we're not sure that we're gonna be able to hold a class unless we did basically what you're doing is, and that is hold a partial class there and in the same time have Zoom set up some way somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't gotten into any particulars on that. I assume there's going to be the expectation of the 6 foot separation between families at least.
Right. Yeah. Well, the hope is yes, you'll still social distance from those you're not, in regular contact with. So, no, Gail, you don't have to stay 6 feet away from him.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, Gail. How are you?
Good. Good.
So, but again, there are some classes that I know Sandy's going to stay. There's classes going to stay online probably through the end of the year, and then reevaluate at that point. Sherry's group already meets at their house anyway, so that's not a deal. But there's, and I know Ted, he's not coming back, but there may be some from their class. They want to do it, so they're going to, I think they're going to look at the hybrid option. And then James, they do a Google Meet right now, so they would have to do some kind of hybrid option as well if they chose to do that. Anyway,
do you know when they're going to be able to give us an estimate of the capacity for our room?
I'll have to, Beth was up here yesterday. I'll text her and see if they've got that squared away, but I would guess that your room 204 would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 would be kind of, and maybe if it's like more couples, then, it probably could be a few more than that, but with the 6 foot distance, it's going to be limited. So, and with the shape of some of the rooms, like the room 207 where James's class meets, it's like long and skinny. So it's hard to width-wise do distancing unless you're like up against the wall.
Yeah, we could probably do a lot more if we took the tables out, couldn't we?
You might be able to, but then again, you know, if you utilize the tables, you know, for people to have their Bibles out and study materials out and coffee. Well,
Yeah.
we won't be giving you coffee, but if you bring your own, then you would have that. But yes, you'd be able to do more if the tables weren't in there. So, but that's up to y'all.
All righty.
Again, just because
me
it's
add that
available
one-
doesn't mean you have to take it.
Do you
Gotcha.
know when they might increase the number in the sanctuary?
Oh, he's talking about that for November.
Oh, November.
I think as far as more in the sanctuary, we'll kind of play that by ear. Right now, we haven't filled up. You know, it hasn't been like
Hi, darling.
turning away people. So I think right now we did add 2 extra seats on each row in the center sections. So we did technically add some more capacity, but it was more to
Hey,
give
come
people a
here.
little bit more breathing room.
What? Come here.
So we, when we add a couple more seats on the outside, then that'll probably allow us to bump up our capacity, because that's probably what the setting's going to be for Christmas Eve, which is, you know, we're looking at setting that cap at 100. So that's Christmas Eve, y'all. It's going to be, I don't know.
Just a minute.
We're lucky today. We've got our granddaughter and our grandson.
Yay!
This is Avery.
Hi, Avery.
And Cooper's here, but he doesn't have a shirt on, so.
All right. That's fine. Hey, Cooper.
This is a good day.
Yeah. Very good. All
But I
righty
gotta
then.
fix her lunch.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Well, again, I appreciate y'all. Let me know if y'all need anything, and I'll drop this video to everybody here a little bit later this afternoon. All right.
All right. We'll
Thank
see
you
you
much.
Sunday.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks much.
Awesome. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Goodbye now.
Bye.